Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi and today we are taking a look at the new Prada beauty line. So I have to say, I think photos don't do these products justice. When I first saw them online, yeah, I was interested. I definitely wanted to try out the formulas, but I didn't really think the packaging looked that great and I wasn't really super intrigued by the color stories. They are so much prettier in person. So let's take a look. So first, I'm just going to show you everything I picked up, and then we will go through everything in detail. I picked up the foundation. I wasn't sure what shade to pick up. I ended up going with LN10, and I think that was a really good choice for me. For reference, my perfect foundation match is Cle de Peau I10, Koh Gen Do 012, the BD01 in Chanel. Those are kind of my go-to shades. So LN10 has worked out well for me. So we'll take a look at that, but let me just show you this packaging here first. So we have a heavy duty cap with a click closure. You can see this is plastic, by the way, and this is refillable. So you can, I haven't, yep, this just pulls out for the refill. You can purchase the refills. So if you don't want the actual container, this is totally functional just as a refill. So that's one option. Now I purchased all of my items from Selfridges, which is a little bit less expensive than the US Prada Beauty website. That's another place that you can purchase if you are in the US. However, I just wanted to mention that at this time, the Prada Beauty website in the US, they did not have the foundations up for a few days. They added them, but they are not available for purchase. I don't know if somehow all shades miraculously sold out in like a day or so, or, they just never actually made them available yet. So my guess is they haven't been available yet, and there has been some sort of shipping delay, but they do have returns on the Prada Beauty US website. So definitely take a look at their return policy. If you are, blind buying a foundation, it might be more worth it to do that versus a blind buy from Selfridges. Now, the Prada Beauty eyeshadow palettes, I have to say, from photos online, it kind of looked like it was three shades just because of the way that they had the lid angled. But it is 4 shades. You can see this bar here. This is your little lever to lift this up. We do have 2 utensils that come in here. You can see we have a mirror finish on the outside as well as on the inside. These are the 2 utensils. So they are not double-ended. So we have a little angled brush and a foam tip applicator. So those do come in the case right here. These are refillable. You can see this triangle here on the back. That's going to lift this out. You can see we have like this little lever to lift it. So it's not magnetic per se. This is not metal, but it does lift out and click in here. So this one here is shade 01 in the palette. And you can see we've got these 4 shades here. Each of them is a different finish. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to swatch this one, followed by the big one in the middle, and then the 2 lighter ones. So let's see how this goes. Now, this thinner one here, the texture is more like a stiffer putty-like finish. And I think, that's always your deepest color. I think that's really great because it really prevents it from making a mess. You're only getting a little bit on your brush at a time. You can definitely go in with more control. So our first shade here is going to be a deeper brown. Let me just go over that a little bit more. You can see kind of that putty-like texture on here, and it's really buildable. And I have to say, I really like the texture. Next, we have, this is going to be more of a soft satin brown. It's like a satin matte, so it's not super shiny. And you can see this definitely has a warm coppery tone to it. Then we have a metallic shade, and this is like a peachy champagne. It's more champagne with just a slight touch of peach. And this is going to be metallic finish, and you can see you definitely have some sheen on there. You could go in, tap it on lightly for a little bit of sparkle instead, but there's no translucent base. It is definitely an opaque shade itself. And then last shade here is this purple, this lavender shade, which I had to get it for this. And this one here is going to be more of a matte. It's also putty-like, but not quite to the same extent as our deeper shade here. Now, because it does have a more putty-like texture, both of these, when you first tap them on, you know, it's going to really adhere to the skin there. You can build it up from there. You can blend it out from there, but you want to work with it a little bit or you can end up with patchiness. Like this is not just a one swipe and go kind of shade, just because that formula does have a bit more grip to it there. So it's going to kind of stick where you put it first. So just something to note, but this is our first eyeshadow palette. It's really pretty. The other one I picked up is 04. And you can see when you look at these two side by side that the browns at the top, they look like they might be kind of similar, right? You can see that this one is, you know, they're not the same shade, but they do have some similar, they have a general similar appearance. I was kind of surprised because I thought that was brown, but look, when I swatch this deepest shade here, you can see it's actually more of a purple, like a purple mixed with burgundy. So we've got a little bit of red, we've got a little purple there. It's a gorgeous shade, and I'm so glad it is not a brown like I thought it was. I think it's just so much better this way, and it's not overly red to give you kind of that red eye look. It's great. This middle shade here, you can see this is going to be a peach. It's just a great base shade. You can see compared to this one, it's a little bit peachier and a little bit lighter. But I have to say my favorite shade in here is this metallic. This is actually my favorite shade out of the two palettes I picked up, which kind of surprised me. First of all, we've got this beautiful rosy metallic. It's got some warmth in it, but it's not overly warm. I think it is stunning, and the formula is just so smooth. And then we have this green, which again, super beautiful. When you first put this on, depending on what kind of brush you use, it's going to be very, very soft and light, and you can build it up to the color of the swatch here. Really beautiful. I love this palette. Between the two palettes, I have to say number 4 here, that one's actually my preference. I love it. This is the one I have on my eyes right now as well. And then I also picked up 2 lipsticks. So Prada has 2 different finishes. You can, again, these are refillable. Everything's refillable. We have the gold center versus the silver center. The silver center, this is going to be the soft matte lipstick. I have shade P157. So let me just show you what the bullet looks like. So you can see we have kind of here at the top, this part is already flattened. This is a little bit more rounded on the other side. So it's definitely showing you how to do it. You can see we have kind of a flat edge here at the top. It isn't the easiest to go around the lips just because, you know, when you're getting here, you know, you kind of have to pick up and move. Otherwise, that's just one swatch there. Otherwise, you know, it's really easy to kind of use this wide tip essentially. So again, this is shade P157. I'll put the name on the screen. Is matte Pourpre, and I will definitely have that on the screen. You can see Pourpre, meaning purple. This is not purple at all. It's actually a really beautiful, you know, kind of a bright pink. There is a touch of blue in there, but I wouldn't say it looks purple by any means. Now this is our Hyper Matte in the gold packaging, and I picked up the lightest shade here. This is B01. This is called Argile, and this is what's on my lips now, and you can see that it is a nude shade. Now this does have a touch of mauve in it, so it's preventing it from being kind of one of those more dead-like browns. You do have a touch of mauve in there to give it a little movement. I think it's a really gorgeous color. So we'll talk about the finishes and how they feel, texture, and all of that in the demos. Let's get started with the foundation. This is called the Prada Reveal Skin Optimizing Foundation. Again, it is refillable, and it's available on the Prada Beauty US website for $70 US. Again, everything's a little bit less expensive on Selfridges. And in this case, this is described as a foundation that refines the skin in 3 dimensions, including tone, luminosity, and texture to reveal soft, filtered skin in real life. These foundations boast a breathable, soft matte finish and up to 24-hour wear. This has long-lasting, medium buildable coverage foundation has been fused with IRL, or in real life, microfilter technology. And that is trademarked, by the way. This technology consists of a smart molecule that microcrystallizes onto skin. It is life-proof and transfer resistant. Potent ingredients optimize skin over time. There's vitamin E for skin tone. 100% active niacinamide enhances skin's natural radiance and hydration. And lactobacillus extra complex refines skin texture. There are 33 shades. They are supposed to be flexible shades. And it says that there's AI technology powered and human tailored. The shade design is based on an algorithm of 3,000 different skin tones scanned for shade optimization. It's made for different skin tones and skin types and is safe for sensitive skin. And again, for the refill, you just pull that out. And if you purchase a refill, it says it's reducing packaging by 62% when compared to repurchasing a new foundation. And yeah, I have to say, I think this is a really beautiful product. So as I mentioned, the foundation retails for $70 US. The refills $55 US. I have to say, Prada also has introduced a line of brushes. I am thinking that they are all synthetic. It does not specifically say anywhere. However, they have this foundation brush that it's available on the Prada site, but I wanted to pick it up from Selfridges because it was less expensive. I haven't actually seen it available yet. It's been marked out of stock since before everything loaded onto the site. What looks kind of cool about that, and I'll put the picture up here, is we kind of have these 3 layered tiers on the brush. So I think that looks really cool. I don't know if it's worth the $85 US that Prada Beauty is charging on the US site though. So just something I wanted to note there. As for the foundation itself, you could definitely actually sheer this out for a very light foundation as well. It says it's medium coverage, and you know, if you put on, it's a thin serum texture. So texturally, it reminds me very, very much of the Chanel Sublimage L'Essence de Teint foundation. So it has that thin serum-like texture. You can sheer it out, and you can also build it up to a true medium coverage. But if you're just using a light layer, I would actually classify it more in the light coverage spectrum instead. And it does, you know, you want to put it on, don't put the dots all over your face at first because it will dry pretty quickly since it is a thin formula. So, you know, it will evaporate. Could be left with kind of patchy spots. So definitely kind of work in one area at a time. It goes on well with a variety of brushes. In the 2 demos here, I used 2 different Kyoto brushes, one with, you know, natural undyed goat hair and one with synthetic fibers. Both of them apply the foundation beautifully. You could really build it up. So I think it's a really nice foundation. I have to say, I really like it. They definitely have a nice looking shade range. I'm very curious to see what other people think of this product after they've tried it. So if you've tried the foundation, please let me know what you think. But I think they did an excellent job. You know, I think it's really nice. I'm very happy with it. Let's go ahead and move on to the eyeshadows. So the eyeshadows are called Prada Dimensions. And again, these are going to be refillable. On the US website, they are $80 for the whole thing. The refill is $65. And I have to say, I am very interested in picking up, I really wanted to get shade number 2 Pro Fusion, but I had decided to wait and see how I like the formula first. So what I have is shade number 1 Portrait, which has the purple, and then shade number 4, Poetry, with the green. And, you know, I like these. I'm picking up Profusion, so I think it's gorgeous. We actually have quite a few, you know, really beautiful color stories here, and I feel like the promo photos that they used really don't do these justice. I bet they are all gorgeous. Let's talk a little bit about the formula here, and starting off with some information from the Prada website. It says Prada Dimensions is inspired by the iconic prints from the house archives. Every eye palette is a unique combination of 3 sophisticated neutrals and a single eccentric accent in 4 dynamic finishes, including satin, soft matte, hyper matte, and meta foil. An invitation to explore all of your dimensions and to experiment endless combinations of easy to wear, easy to dare eye looks with maximal color expression. And they are created using a low pressure injection process with micropixella pigments which deliver one stroke payoff with high color resolution. The hybrid creamy powder finish eyeshadows blend and layer without fall off. I would agree with that. While their skin affinity provides weightless comfort and up to 12-hour durable wear. It's infused with Pluconicia volubilis oil. I probably mispronounced that and I apologize. Prada Dimensions offers a seamless glide-on application and gives the eyelids a smoother look after 28 days of consistent use. And again, they are refillable, and according to Prada, the refill allows for 75% less packaging use when compared to repurchasing a full eyeshadow palette. And again, we do have the little brush and foam tip applicator as well. So as for the formulas here, okay, and you can see with the eye swatches, I was using the Sonia G Worker Pro for all of these. I think it's just, these shades are gorgeous. So the long skinny shade at the top, the deepest shade in each of the palettes, is your Hyper Matte. And again, the Hyper Matte lipstick is the one with the gold. Okay, so that's our Hyper Matte. And then the shade in the middle is the Satin. And that's our prime shade as well. So that's intended to be your base, your biggest shade in the palette. The colorful shade in each palette is your Soft Matte, and they're calling that a twist shade. And then we have the metallic shade, which is your Metal Foil, and that is for luminizing. I have to say, I think they are gorgeous. I love the little differences between each of the formulas. I like how they include all of those in each palette. You're not getting, you're not picking out a palette where maybe you have 2 of the 4 finishes. I like having all of those together. As I mentioned, the Hyper Matte and the Soft Matte really have some grip to them. They have a little bit more of a putty-like texture. And so when you first put them on the skin, they adhere there pretty strongly, and then you can blend them out from there. The Hyper Matte is a little bit more of a putty-like finish texture than the Soft Matte. The Soft Matte, your bright accent colors, again, that has that grip as well. It's just to a lesser extent. And I think both of them blend out beautifully. You can really layer them up. As for your bright shades, those soft matte shades, all of them can go on very lightly. If you want to use a fluffy brush and pat that on, you're going to get a very sheer color. It makes it very wearable. But if you go in with a soft shader or you continue to build that, you're going to get the color in the pan. So I really like that versatility with those shades. I think they really hit it out of the park with that. Their Satin Prime shades, those are going to be a soft satin matte type finish. It doesn't have too much of a sheen. There is a soft sheen to it. They're very comfortable. They're thin. They glide on nicely, and they have a silky powder texture with a little bit of a creamy texture to them. The Metal Foils are going to be one of those buttery, creamy, metallic shades. You can see, even when you touch the pan with your brush or with your finger, that you're indenting because it is such a buttery shade. Think of some of those buttery Natasha Denona shades or the new YSL shades. It's going to be a similar texture to that, but what is special about that is I really have not noticed any fallout with those shades. I'm really impressed. Now, as I mentioned, as for the color stories for each of these, I think they are beautiful. I'm very happy with both of the palettes that I picked up. My favorite is the 04 Green. And again, surprisingly, it's because of that metallic shade, that rosy metallic shade. A lot of times we see those kind of rose gold shades that are going to be too warm. This is, or too cool sometimes, but usually for the eyes, they're a little bit too warm. This is a neutral rosy shade. There's a touch of kind of like a hint of gold in there, but definitely not enough to call it a warm shade. I think it's actually very wearable for most skin tones. And I just think it's gorgeous. The green, I love how that can build up. It can be layered. And, I would have to say this green palette 04, if you skip that green on its own, that's just like a classic everyday with a little bit of oomph from that metallic shade. Really gorgeous. Same thing actually with the 01. If you, delete that purple shade, you're getting something like that as well. However, I think just blending the matte shades, the hyper matte and the soft matte with you know, that would give you a great duo for either of these palettes as well. And because you can really layer and intensify those soft matte shades, you really have a lot of versatility. You can make it bright, you can make it light and soft. It's really a great option. So I'm really happy with these palettes. I think they are great. We've had some really incredible new eyeshadow releases recently, and I have to say these are right up there towards the top of the list. You know, as for which is my favorite, I'm not quite sure yet, but I would have to say that I would put this formula above the YSL. I'm not sure if it actually passes the Cle de Peau. I think they're different, you know, they're kind of slightly different aesthetic and texture and so forth, but yeah, you know, these are really fantastic. So very happy with these. Let's move on to the lipsticks. So Prada also released a lip balm as well. I did not pick that up. I might in the future now though. But let's start off with the lipsticks. And again, these are refillable. So each lipstick is $50 US and the refills are $40 US. And let's start off with the Hyper Matte, which is the shade that I'm wearing, which is the formula I'm wearing. And again, I have on shade B01, which is Argile. And it's a really beautiful nude. As for the photos online, you know, I feel like the swatch photos of this one online are pretty accurate, but they look slightly cooler and slightly lighter. They're a little washed out than what they are in real life for this particular shade. And again, that's B01 Argile. Now, as for the description from Prada website for Hyper Matte, it says it delivers maximal color in one stroke coverage. It's a sophisticated matte finish lasting for up to 12 hours with minimal feel on the lips. It's formulated with microfit technology. The texture glides seamlessly, fusing in contact with the lips and feeling weightless all day long. It's infused with bifidus extract and jojoba oil. With Prada monochrome, lip quality looks visibly upgraded over time. There are 13 shades with a black base and 3 pure pigments. And this is to reproduce the Saffiano leather's high integrity color depth. So I think that is really interesting. So we have 13 different shades here. And you know, they do, if you go onto the Prada Beauty website, they do kind of list out, you know, which ones are truly orange, red, pink, and brown. And this one here in Argyle is considered brown. And yeah, I have to say, I really like this Hyper Matte formula. It goes on and it feels slick. You know, you've got a creamy, it feels like a creamy matte. You have some slip and glide on the lips. It does dry down and settle down a bit and it feels very comfortable, weightless. It's not drying on my lips. It lasts pretty much all day. I think it's a really wonderful lip product. According to Prada, it says that 76% in packaging weight with the lip color refill compared to repurchasing a new lip color. Now, one thing I want to note is this is not a transfer proof lipstick. It is going to last all day, but you can, you know, lose a little bit of that. The Hyper Matte shade, you know, it's pretty good with 1 coverage. I still think 2 is better, but I find it to be really comfortable. Now, let's take a look at the Soft Matte because it is a little different. Now, the Soft Matte has the silver belt in the middle here, and according to Prada, the Soft Matte lipstick delivers adjustable, buildable coverage, a soft diffused matte finish lasting for up to 6 hours with minimal feel on the lips. And I would have to say your wear time here is pretty accurate with that. And, you know, it does give you kind of a diffused matte finish. I think this one is best applied more sparingly. I think it looks beautiful, kind of pat it on and blurt out like I have in the one demo here. It also works really nicely as a blush. I really like it as a cream blush. It actually performs very well that way as well. You know, so you could use it definitely on the skin with, you know, pretty much all day wear on that. So I think it's really great for that. Now, as for building it on the lips, I actually have to say that the Hyper Matte feels a bit more hydrating than the Soft Matte, which, you know, kind of surprised me because typically a Soft Matte is more similar to like a satin finish a little bit. It's usually a little bit lighter weight and so forth. This definitely has a lightweight feel on the lips, but it just doesn't feel quite as comfortable as a Hyper Matte. That being said, is it uncomfortable? No, I have definitely, I would not classify it that way. So I would actually purchase more shades in both of these finishes. However, I prefer the hyper matte over the soft matte. And again, we're going to have 13 shades here, and these are formulated with a white base instead of a black base. So in general, you should have not necessarily always some lighter shades, but your tones are perhaps going to be a bit brighter. And I picked up shade 157. And as for the swatch photos online for shade 157 versus what I have, they are definitely much more muted online. Online, I would say it looks more like a soft rose, like a soft medium rose, whereas in person, it's definitely brighter and more vibrant. Now, some of the photos on the actual person, again, when you're looking at those, that's what it looks like if you're using and dabbing on just a little bit and kind of blending it out with your finger like in the demo. But if you are going to apply it by swiping it on your lips and kind of building up that pigment, it's definitely much more vibrant than the photos on the models that they are showing on their website. So, you know, it's actually a bit more fuchsia in tone than that. And I hope this is helpful. It's always so hard picking out makeup online. So I hope these little differences really help you determine which colors might work best for you. So I did want to mention that Prada, along with these new makeup, now I wanted to mention that along with all of these new makeup items, Prada has released a new brush line as well as some new skincare. So they have a cleanser, a serum, moisturizer, and, you know, I believe, yep, all of those are refillable as well, except perhaps the cleanser. And, you know, I think everything looks nice, but it was the makeup that really interested me. And again, I am going to try and get that foundation brush at some point. But I have to say, this new line, I'm really impressed. Now, the packaging for this, you know, I feel like the photos online make it look a little bit cheaper than it looks in person. I'm not sure how it's going to come across on camera, but it definitely looks better in person than I expected. However, everything is a fingerprint magnet because it's all like mirror finish. All right, so let's go through a few comparisons. Start off with the foundation. We're going to put that here on my right hand, and you can see texturally that it is going to be a thin texture here, silky on the skin, blends out easily. It does feel like there's plenty of water, so it feels like it's evaporating fairly rapidly. Not too fast that it's hard to blend out, but if you put your dots all over, yeah. So this is LN10. This is the Chanel Sublimage Satin. And this one here is in BR12, which is not my normal shade. This is a little bit darker than what I normally wear because they didn't release this in all of the colors here. So you can see here is BR12, and it's actually a bit rosier. And you can see that the Prada is a little bit peachier. This is the Cle de Peau Radiant Natural Foundation, and this is shade I-10, which is my go-to shade here. This is going to be a bit lighter than both. You can see that the LN10 does get a little bit deeper. So you can see as it has sat on me, it still works for me during the summer. It might be a little bit deep, but they do have a lighter shade. LN5 was lighter. I would have to say that this foundation, though, appears a little bit darker in person than it did in the online photos. So it's just, you know, it's always hard to pick online. Just for reference, this is the Chanel BD01. Just gonna put this one horizontally here, and you can see how much lighter that is compared to the Prada. It's gonna have to sit for a minute to truly gauge that. While we're letting these sit, let's take a look at some lipstick comparisons on my other hand. Now, first up, we're going to start with Argile here. This is the Hyper Matte, and this is the Givenchy Deep Velvet in number 10 Beige Nude. And you can see that Beige Nude is more pink. It's definitely going to be a rosier shade. This is one of my go-tos. I love this lipstick. This is a satin lipstick. This is from Hermes. This is number 20, Satin Beige d'Automne. This is one of their newer shades. and it does have a bit of shimmer in it. So that's right here. You can see that this is going to be significantly warmer. It has more of a golden hue to it. Then we have a couple of Dries Van Noten lipsticks. So I hate how these things are not truly labeled. One second here, but this one is going to be the sheer lipstick in 03. So this is going to be more of like a lip balm type. I built that up a little bit, but you can see it's going to be lighter, and there is a bit more of a rosy golden hue to it. So a little bit of a warmer rose. And then we also have one of the mattes in shade 15. And this one made me think of it right away. So that's right here. You can see this is deeper. It has a little bit more purple than the Prada, but honestly, they are pretty close. You know, if you're looking for something a little bit lighter than that Dries Van Noten, that's a good match. We also have a Satin in number 14, and we'll put this one right here at the top. So that's right there. You can see this is going to be pinker, rosier. Next, let's take a look at 157 in the soft matte. We're starting off with one of these Estee Lauder shades. This is the High Luster in 565 Starlit Pink. And this is what made me think of right away, but I can say dropping this, it does not break it, so that's good. But this is the first shade that came to mind when I swatched this. You can see that the Starlit Pink is going to be a bit more vibrant. It's also, you know, it's basically a little bit brighter, shinier. The color tone is pretty similar. This is Armani Lip Power in 507. I think this one's going to be a little bit warmer, but it made me think of it also. Yeah, you can see it's a little bit warmer, a little bit more red. We have one of the Hermes Brillant lipsticks. This is 38, Rose Nymphea. This is going to be lighter and more sheer for sure. Oh, it's actually much more bubblegum than I remembered. So you can see that's going to be lighter. It's got more blue in it. And then we have a Valde lipstick in Vulnerable. And let's put this one right here at the top. This is going to be a bit more pink as well. There's more of a blue base to it. Very vibrant. So those are kind of my closest matches. Surprisingly, I have so many pink lipsticks. I thought for sure there'd be one that was just like it, but there's really not. Okay, so here are the foundation samples as they have dried. So we have the Prada here in LN10, followed by the Chanel Sublimage Lessons to Time BR12. This is the Cle de Peau Radiant Natural in I10, followed by the Chanel Ultra Latent in BD01. So you can see after everything has sat and oxidized a bit, they get a bit more similar, and this is relatively close to the BR12, just a bit more neutral, less cool. I would say it's actually closest to the BD01 here. You can see those are pretty close. Now let's move on to eyeshadow comparisons. And I have to say, I don't have a palette that matches all of these color stories exactly, but I wanted to start with a few Natasha Denona shades. This is the Mini Pastel palette. I wanted to take a look at this green here and see how that compares. You can see that we've got a bit more blue in the Prada green. The Natasha Denona is going to be a bit brighter. I also want to take a look at this pink shimmer here, just to kind of see how that, you know, matches up. But you can see that it's going to be a lot more pastel than the metallic shade in the Prada 04. And then let's take a look at this one here. And this one. So we've got Pixie and Galaxia, and just wanted to see how those kind of compared. This is the Mini Retro palette. So you can see, again, nothing is going to be a match for this, which is kind of like this mauvey rose, mauvey dusty rose, really pretty. This is the YSL in 400. Let's go ahead and swatch this. We'll put this one down here vertically. And just see how those shades compare. You can see nothing's a dupe, but you can kind of get like a similar color to this with this shade here, this shade here from the YSL. We don't have the shimmer, but perhaps topping these. Let's try that. So if we take this deeper shade and we top it with that other one, let's see here. There it is, 2 layers with that. Now let's see how this compares right next to it. Yeah, you can see that the YSL is going to be cooler in tone, a little bit more purple. But again, you can get kind of a similar look. I also want to take a look at a Givenchy. This is 9.03. We're just going to go ahead and swatch some of these shades. I want to start with this one and this one here. And let's put them down here. Nope, those aren't really going to match anything there. Let's take a look at these two. So this is the rest of the middle row. Nothing quite like those. Let's see how this first shade here kind of compares with this. I think, yeah, it's more eggplant, but you can see that first shade, it looks brown, but it has some purple in it. Let's try this last one here and see how that compares. Oh no, much deeper. Surprisingly, because that looks a lot lighter here. All right, so that's gonna be it for the Givenchy 9.03. Let's look at some of the browns in the Guerlain Royal Jungle. This is number 940. This is permanent. We're gonna go ahead and swatch this whole palette here. And just wanted to see how this one kind of compared. So some of these shades, like this deeper one here, also has kind of that putty-like texture that you find in like the hyper matte and soft matte shades for the Prada. So this deeper shade is more similar in texture to those. So you can see overall the color story is not the same, but you do have a very similar color story with these browns here in 01. All right, so let's move on to a few of the Cle de Peau shades. This here is a Sun-Dried Driftwood number 3, and I wanted to take a look at this deepest shade here and see how that compares. You can see how that compares to this shade here in the 04 palette. It doesn't have as much red in there. It's a little bit more purple. And this is palette number 12. Let's just go ahead and swatch these shades. We're going to skip the primer shade. We're just going to take a look at these 3 and let's put them right here by the side. You can see our purple is going to be a lot cooler in tone and lighter than this one here. By the way, I also checked out the Viseart Violette palette. It's significantly cooler in purples than this, so there aren't any matches. This is going to be more eggplant than this, and again, we have more of that taupe there. So yeah, those are kind of my best matches for that. So I hope those comparisons were helpful. Overall, I'd have to say that the new Prada makeup line has definitely met my expectations. I'm actually pleasantly surprised by it. I was a little nervous that it wouldn't be that great. We have so many brands starting makeup lines all the time. And this one actually seems like they put a lot of thought and effort into really doing a great job. I love the way that they came up with their foundation shades. I think that was a really smart thing to do. And, for me, I think it's working out pretty well. Their formulas seem to, be really great. So I love the fact that everything's refillable. The packaging looks much better in person than it does online. Overall, this is a great line and I can't wait to try more from these. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know if you've tried any of these or if you're planning on it, and I'll see you very soon. Have a great day.